Africa and are interested to hear more about this, then please either come and speak to me or Hisham or Nishal, or come and speak to us about joining FIX. So this is basically the regions which are covered through the Internet Exchange Point associations. So this map probably looks a little bit familiar, like the RIR maps, which is intentional because it kind of makes sense for us to follow the regions where LACNIC, AFRINIC, APNIC, and RIPE is. So I've talked about the other Internet Exchange Point associations. Last year, during the EuroX forum in Stockholm, the 3 Internet Exchange Point associations, so APIX, LACIX, and EuroX, actually signed an MOU to form the Internet Exchange Point Federation. And the idea of the federation is to have, the main point behind this as well is that we have a global IXP database. We're looking to set some standards, automate data collection from all IXPs, and we have plans to collaborate with PeeringDB, and that's all in progress right now. So this is a look at Africa, and this is the traffic. So you can see that from August last year, traffic was pretty traffic information. So we've been collecting that throughout the year. And the traffic now is a bit more realistic to what you will see in Africa. So what we see in Africa is 29 known IXPs in the FIX region, and that is 22 out of 54 countries, and 26 cities in Africa have IXPs. So there is still a lot of room for growth here. In Asia, we have 79 known IXPs in the APIX region, and that's 20 of the African graph was what we see generally is that during the summer months and during December, when people tend to go on holidays or are taking time off, you see a little dip in traffic. But here you see that in Asia the summer, but we didn't actually see that in the African map, which just keeps going up and to the right. And this is the LACIX region. So there is 53 known IXPs in the LACIX region. That's 14 of 20 countries have IXPs, and 43 cities in the Latin America region have IXPs. And again, that's the traffic. And also I should state as well that the traffic that we collect is traffic that is seen on the public peering lands. So it's not traffic that there's a lot of peers that actually do private peering, so we don't actually monitor that. What we collect is just the public peering traffic. And this is Europe. So we have 161 known IXPs in the EuroIX region, and I should say as well that this is actually still continuing to grow, and that's 48 out of 50 countries, and 123 cities in Europe have IXPs. And again, the traffic is up and to the right. And we couldn't fit the whole map into one page. So this is the extension of the EuroX region, which is the Middle East. And you can see there's 9 IXPs in the Middle East. The numbers are all included in the slide before. And in North America, we count 70 IXPs in North America. That's 2 of 2 countries, so both USA and Canada have internet exchange points, and 41 cities in North America have IXPs. So this bar chart shows the range of EuroIX IXPs with a given range of ASN numbers connected to it. So you can see that there are IXPs out there that have 3 to 10 members there, and actually quite a large proportion of the have a lower number of members connected to them. 11 to 20, we've got tracks in Finland, the Nepal Internet Exchange. 20 to 100, we see NEX in Italy, INEX, NET, JPNAP, and Leonex. And then 101 to 300, UAIX, SwissIX, VIX, 3 Kicks Links, Moscow Internet Exchange, and what is being used by the EuroIX membership. So for the first time this year, we saw Alcatel-Lucent come into the database, and that was with the DKIX deployment of Alcatel-Lucent. Root servers has been quite a topic even in today's session earlier. So this bar chart here shows the different root servers that are used. Has a problem with a particular either vendor or root server that they're using, they can actually look up on the database and see who else is using that, and then contact the member themselves and get some help from the membership. And these are the root server operating systems that are used within the membership. Some of you may have seen the movie that EuroIX has produced with help from other internet exchanges. I'm very happy to say that it's now available in, actually from last week, in Arabic, and it's also available in French, Turkish, Spanish, Romanian, Portuguese, and German. So you can have a look on the EuroIX YouTube channel, or you can have a look on the EuroIX homepage where you'll see links to all of those there. So, and here are some links and references. I'm sure these slides will be available, so if you want to, you can have a look at those afterwards. Conclusions, so EuroIX and the other Internet Exchange Point associations are associations for Internet Exchange Points. We have a knowledge base, sharing ideas and experience via the website, the mailing list, and the forums. We have the IXP database to contain information about IXPs from around the world. And if you are an IXP and you find you're not on the database, then please contact me. We're here to help new and existing IXPs. We do that via the twinning program and just offer advice, or I can set you up with an existing EuroIX member if you're looking for any help or advice on anything. We have the biannual forum, so if you're a new IXP and are interested in joining a EuroIX forum, then again, please come and talk to me. And the IXP is a trusted community. We're all very friendly.
manager, Afrinic IR, and those of you that were in the room earlier on would have heard me send you an invitation to come here with us. And I find it's always very difficult for me to say I'm speaking with my Afrinic hat, I'm speaking with my ISPA hat. Internet exchange point operators, the new ones, and guys that are trying to start up internet exchange points. I see some of you in the audience, I've spoken to some of you, and those of you that maybe will think about new exchange points after this. So here's the problem statement, right? When we talk about internet exchange points, we always say, yes, it's a layer 2 switch. That's it. It's really that simple. I've done that. I do. I talk a lot about peering, and I know people in this room that talk about peering, and I know people in this room that also describe internet exchange points like this, that it's a layer 2 switch, and that's really all that you need to start peering at your internet exchange point. And yes, in a sense, they're not wrong, because fundamentally that's what it is. It's just switching stuff at Ethernet at layer 2. But if it was, we seeing on the map behind me. So I'm going to read that out for you. It's a map of Africa. Hello, we're in Africa. The blue dots represent known working internet exchange points in Africa. So this was a map that was compiled by Hisham, Michuki, and myself, and we believe it to be the most complete exchange point map of Africa. As I said, the blue ones are active internet exchange points where we know there are people on the ground running things. We know that there's traffic moving through the internet exchange point. The green dots are cities where there are more than one known internet exchange point. And at this point, that's just Johannesburg and Cape Town. I'm sorry, it gets a bit kludgy down south. But that's Johannesburg and Cape Town. And there's two independent internet exchange points in Johannesburg, and there's 2 independent exchange points in Cape Town. So the problem is really the red. Now, if running an exchange point was as simple as saying, broke. You can count there 24 blue dots, 2 greens, and 6 red dots. So it's easy, you know. I was an operator for a long time, and when you're an operator, it's always the regulator's fault, right? It's always the regulator didn't do the years living in Mauritius, and Mauritius, I think, has really interesting regulation, particularly around interconnections. It's really, really easy to interconnect. It's really, really easy to get things done in Mauritius, but they're a red dot. So, okay, no, scratch. It is because you 10 providers that are visible at exchange. That's older than most European. I'm not sure how many are older than that, but in 16 years we didn't have big content providers in those days. So no, it's not that they aren't content providers. You can say that it's because it's difficult to interconnect. It's expensive. That's the other one that we say all the time. It's very expensive to interconnect, or the regulatory framework is incorrect. Well, I come from South Africa. Do you know how bad our regulatory environment was? Let me tell you a story. You know the experiment you do with two tins when you're a kid. You pick up two tins, you make a hole in them, you put a piece of string in the middle, and then you give one end to your friend, and you speak. If I cross the boundary line. So don't tell me it's overregulated. I come from an overregulated market. We've deregulated since then, thank heavens. But it's not regulation. So there's something else that's driving this failure. And I don't really know what all of the reasons, but I hope that at least some of you in the room, it'll give some of you in the room something to think about. Something to work on, and if there's some researcher here that wants to put effort into researching it, I'd love to work with you. I'm sure Michuki would as well. I think one of the reasons that exchange points don't work in Africa, or we've seen that 25% failure rate, comes down to what exchange point operators need to be able to do. Sitting here in this room, we can talk about fixing policy. We can talk about working with regulators. We can talk about making interconnections easier and getting cross-border connections. But the one thing that we can definitely affect easily ourselves is what you do as an exchange point operator to make your internet exchange point attractive to other people. That's what it comes down to, very simply. Why would somebody want to connect to you? So I really don't want to discuss what succeed means. What is it that's driving me to want to interconnect? I'm glad this is a Peering Coordinators Day. So I'm told the policy stuff starts point. If you're looking at first to your place, so is the air conditioning working? Is there a place for diesel? And there's a list of things that you really don't want to hear. Available. And if you can't give that to the people, if you can't give them faith that what you're building is going to be there, then, well, I think you really need to revisit what the message that you're trying to give out to people. The second issue that's always a problem with internet exchange points is neutrality. Just a long time, and for a couple of years, went through the process in about 2000 of saying we want to send our exchange points out to tender. So we want somebody to run and manage the site, the facilities for us. So please tender, and whoever gets the tender will get awarded. So it went out, there was a long process, somebody won the tender, and it came time for us to move the exchange point. And we went through such but I was happy that the I's were, no, you dot I's, the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed. It was perfect on paper. Except there was one thing wrong. The peers didn't want to move. They understood that this was a non-neutral facility at the time. We didn't have neutral facilities in South Africa. They understood that, yes, it could potentially be a problem as we grow, but they were ingrained in this data center. They just didn't want to move. And when the tender went out and everybody said, okay, we need to up and move the exchange point, 2 people moved, and the rest said, no, thank you, we're just disconnecting. Neutrality is absolutely important. It is. You can't downplay it. But never let what your audience want, what people in the room are asking for, ask them first, what do you want? And let that drive what you deliver on. I'm happy to say that the Cape Town Exchange Point was revived, when was it? 2009, and it's been up and running since then. And yeah, the people that say, well, it fell apart because there wasn't a market, well, today other things that cause exchange points, or other things that you as an exchange point operator need to do to be able to drive people to, or get people to your exchange point. And this is really simple. And I think I'm a technical person. I like to call myself a technical person. But it's something that's not necessarily obvious to us. That in order for other people to find and want to come to connect to our exchange point, the first thing they want to look for is a website. The first thing they want to look for is a very basic information about exchange point being going up. If as an external party, if I'm thinking about connecting to one of your exchange points, the first thing I'd want to see is growth year on year. Because if your exchange point is not growing, I mean traffic. If your exchange point is not growing in terms of traffic, it means there's no value in me coming in, no value in me going through the exercise of wanting to put in infrastructure, whether it's through remote peering, whether it's through dedicated infrastructure. Well, your exchange point is dying. Why should I interconnect? Okay? So, as I say, this is something that's really, really obvious. But I promise you, and the exchange point operators in the room, the African ones anyway, you know who you are. We had this conversation yesterday. A lot of you don't have this. Like I say, it's difficult to switch hats. But one of the things I do at Afrinic is I run the Afrinic root server copy program, where we try to help internet exchange points put DNS root servers into some location close to the internet exchange point. And my very first requirement from any exchange point operator is, show me proof that you have a running internet exchange point. And to me, that's really simple to show. A simple website that says you have 10 or 20 members attached, and here's the traffic to show you that this is actually growing. And I can look at that today, I can come back in a week and see that it's growing. That's it. Nothing else. So again, attracting members to your exchange point, or trying to get people connected to your exchange point, or even pulling in resources, the people like Afrinic who will be happy to work with you to get stuff going at your exchange point. If you can't show something simple like a website, well, bonus points in the future, of course, would be tools that allow things like automated provisioning, but anyway. Cause people to want, or what would drive people away or not want to make them connect, is a clear understanding of what it takes to get connected to your exchange point. A simple publish interconnect policy. I'd like to connect with how to get connected. Are there rules? Is there regulation that I need to follow? Again, as I said, it's a simple element, and it's one we often take for granted, but it's one that I guarantee you, if we start pulling up the internet exchange points in Africa today, this is not stuff that's easily available. This is not stuff that's easily navigated. I won't discuss it because you happens every now and then up in Johannesburg. Simple that'll add a really go a long way to help. So I wish I had one of these. And I'm sure those of you that recognize this probably do as well. Right? We don't. In practice, we don't. We can't, as much as we'd love to, we can't turn back time. We can't look into the future and necessarily see what's going to happen. So I'm going to share with you what I think were the top 3 and the top 4 good and bad things that we got right and we got wrong. And again, now I'm speaking from an exchange point operator's perspective. So something I fundamentally believe in is the bottom-up approach to getting things done. I work at 2 nonprofits. Both of them have very similar mechanisms for getting things done through a policy process, and I'm not trying to espouse the RIR bits here, but through a policy process that happens through its members. What people want is what you should aim to give them. And I believe that that's been a long-term strength of ours, that we do in most cases listen to the group, except for that slight Cape Town incident. We also try to keep costs lean, and for me this is very important. I think we're a large exchange point in Africa, obviously by international standards. We're not. We're pretty small, but we also have just 1 employee. That's just me. Which is probably why the website is so bad, because I'm not a web designer, but we're getting there. We try to keep costs lean. So again, we operate as a non-profit, so we're not a for-profit entity, and that's easy for us to then go to organizations like Switch Hats, Afrinic, or Switch Hats, go to one of the root server operators and say, we'd like for you to consider investing in infrastructure in our country to be able to, well, make the internet ecosystem work better in South Africa. One problem that we always hear is there are not enough DNS routes in Africa, and I agree with you, there are not enough DNS routes in Africa. Through working with exchange point operators, and this has been through many, many years, back since 2003, I think, we're lucky to have about 5 routes, I think, when I last counted back in the country. And I think a large part of that came from us being able to go to the route operators and say, as a non-profit, neutral, community-elected body, we'd like to work with you. What would it take to work with us? So that, again, that non-profit community thing comes through clearly again. I think also a big success factor for us was we've never had a history of enforced peering. And this is very, I wouldn't say unique, but this is quite different to what most other African internet exchange points do. Most African exchange points, somebody in his slide used the word humble. It was Mark Tinker. Mark Tinker said most African exchange points had a very humble start. And he's right. People connected to the exchange point, they're all paired with one of the BGP root servers, and if they were lucky, then they set up bilateral connections or connections directly to everybody else. We didn't. From the start, we didn't have root servers. That's not incredible lack of vision on our side. It was just that it was run by volunteers, and probably nobody had the time to do it. I can't remember 16 years ago. But we've never made it mandatory for people to want to peer with other people. And I think that has helped us. I think that by our peers, and by peers I mean people at the exchange point, believing that they could connect to the exchange point and not be subjected to a policy that they don't necessarily want to agree with, that was a good reason for them to want to interconnect. We spent a lot of time, back in the early days anyway, with doing social networking before it got to Facebook and Twitter and things like that. There was a lot of community growth. There was a lot of collaborative work. I hear exchange points today, especially the new ones, say, "Oh, we're doing IPv6," and I think that's awesome. I think you do. But for me, exchange points, collaborative environments like this mean that, at least for us, we were doing IPv6 way back when. I don't get excited. Hisham hates me. I don't get excited about IPv6 anymore because to me it's old work. It is, Martin. I'm sorry. But building this environment, this is allows your employees to say, well, can we try this? Can we do this? When we first started doing V6, it was in a separate VLAN, an entirely different network because, well, I didn't know the protocol that well then, and I didn't want to break my production traffic. And over time that's changed, but again, being in that environment has allowed us a chance to grow. Again, the community spirit, let the engineers play, they'll find things to do, they'll find interesting things to do. And as I said, because we're lean, we're also implementation focused. So when we need to do something, we create a small working group, it gets done, we report back into the community, and well, our community, our peers, if they're happy with what's going on, we move from there. So implementation, small focus groups, I think that's a good thing. And those of you that are starting exchange points, and particularly if you're starting exchange points from the perspective of saying we want to be the non-profit model, we want to try to keep costs low, I think that's probably a good thing for you to do. But I'd be lying if I stood here and I said, well, you know, you should listen to us, we did this, we did it right. Because it's wrong, we've made tons of mistakes. And I had to think hard. It's embarrassing. I had to think hard to put just 3 down. Otherwise, well, you know, you just think I didn't know what I was doing if I just kept speaking for the whole afternoon. But I think one of the first mistakes we made, and something I'd caution you against doing, because I've seen this happen in Africa, I've seen this happen in Malaysia as well, for instance. We had this rule in place that in order to peer at the exchange point, you had to be an ISPA member. So that translates to you limit who wants to connect to your internet exchange point. And it scares me that even today, when I listen and I hear new exchange points coming up in the market, one of the things that they always think is, we have to protect our environment. You know, it's like a car industry. We've got to put a tax in on external people that want to interconnect. Well, that to me is the absolute wrong approach to this problem. You want to attract peers to your internet exchange point, whoever they are, right? You want to bring them in from anywhere. So don't limit who can connect to your exchange point. Okay. That for us was a big problem. And I think we scared away a few peers in the day, and because that mindset that you had to be an ISPA member to peer at the exchange point was in people's head, it lingered. It did damage, reputational damage. And that stayed, and we're only now getting over it, where we're now attracting more non-South African operators to the exchange points. So please, learn from my mistakes. If you're starting an exchange point, try not to put stuff like that in place. A second bad thing that we did was we assumed technical competencies. And engineering people, you know who you are. I think we're really bad at this. I think we typically think, oh well, if I can do it, anybody can. And we see the problem even now, to date. When the exchange point started, back then, 16 years ago, the largest operators were peering. Just the largest operators. So if I go back to like 97, I think there were probably about 7, maybe 8 operators at the exchange point. And because they were the larger operators, they had more staff, they had more budget, more skills, so the guys knew BGP and they could get BGP working. Today we have over 80-something participants at the Internet Exchange Point. And not everybody has the same degree of BGP skill. Okay? Some of us have been doing this for a few years, others are just to learn the protocol. But that mindset hasn't translated. The mindset that you need to educate, you need to grow with the people that are connecting, the new guys that are connecting to the exchange point, that hasn't made it through somehow. I'm at a loss for why. I think that's a failure on our part. So if the South Africans in the room, you should just bow your head in shame at this point, all of us. But it's something we should fix. And it's something you can fix as well. Do not make the assumption that because 4 or 5 people can get things done easily, that's going to scale across your internet exchange point. At least it's not going to allow your IXP to grow. So, obviously it's pointless saying you've identified a problem and you haven't worked to resolve that. We have. We're starting to do BGP workshops and routing workshops in country. If there are exchange points in here, particularly those of you in Africa, and you want to chat to me about sharing some of the work we're doing, the materials, I'll be very happy to make that available to you. If you want to translate it, bonus. Okay. Unfortunately, my bilingual skills don't relate to something that would be useful here. But I'm happy to share what we have with you. Is a message I want to leave you with. we expect the exchange points to work. For us, we consider it, informally, we consider it critical internet infrastructure. And it does. Today, the Jinx does a good few gigabits worth of traffic, 7, 6, I can't remember what the last number was. And if it doesn't work, there's a problem. There's a huge problem in the country. Yet, up until last year, up until they appointed the first staff person to look at this, it just became a thing. You know, it would work. Why? Somebody would take care of it. A bunch of volunteers would drive this. Because that's how it ran for 15 plus years. And of course it worked well, but the consequence of it working was that because nobody took ownership of it and nobody espoused work around the exchange point, we've lost that initial, what I call that initial community sense. When we set this up 15 years ago, there was lots and lots of local noise. There was lots and lots of mail on our old mailing lists. But those guys moved up, they moved on, they got titles like manager added to their name, and they stopped posting to mailing lists. So our NOG, our community, has fallen apart. That for me is, again, another moment of shame. We're working to fix this. But I think that you need to bear this in mind as well. If you're setting up exchange points, if you're running exchange points, if you're developing new things, who are your customers? Who are your members? Where's your audience? That's your NOG, it's the community. So if you can't work at building and sustaining the community in your country, if you can't see that this is critical, then I think you're heading for a big mistake. And I can certainly say that that mistake has cost us. It's cost us because now we have a generation of very young network engineers that literally copy-paste a lot of configuration that, you know, is in some cases 10 years old. Probably not the best thing you want to be doing right now. Hats, possibly ever wear. Your community, your local working groups, your local NOGs are vital to success, to interconnecting, not just your exchange points, but also to getting interconnections in your country. And there's some really good people in this room that can help you. There's, I hope, myself and the people here that can work with you to try to get this working. I promise I'm not going to be much longer. I'm not even going to talk about this because this was discussed earlier today. Again, you want to show people that your exchange point is working. So measurement monitoring tools, do you have these in place? Are they working? Are you sure? Have you tested them? AS112.net, much to my disgust, I can't think of another word to say, much to my disgust, people still use 1918 addresses for a lot of reasons that they shouldn't today. And very often they don't need reverse DNS for that, so AS112 is the mechanism to get reverse DNS for that. There are drafts at the ITF to try to expand what AS112.net does, and I tried to pull the statistics. Unfortunately, the server went from an idle kind of like 1 megabit or so to about 5 megabits a second. In fact, we had to take the server offline because we hadn't spec'd it properly. So that's something else that you could look at putting at your exchange point. It doesn't cost you a lot. It's not a difficult thing to set up. And again, there are lots of people here that can help you. Anycast DNS operations. There are DNS root operators in this room. They've introduced themselves. Afrinic, again, run that Anycast root server program. And I'd love to work with you to try to get this into your exchange point to show again that A, your exchange point's growing and working, but B, more importantly, to build infrastructure in our region, because to me, that's what this is about. I'm sorry if I sound infrastructure based, that's my bias. I like building infrastructure, and I think going forward, that's what we need, infrastructure and skills more than anything else. Root service, it should say root service or BGP. You heard a very good presentation this afternoon from Anibe talk about root servers. He's volunteered to help you set them up, if I remember correctly. So I won't even discuss why they're useful. NTP for time, looking glasses we've heard about as well. VoIP, that's a great value add. The way we do it in Johannesburg, because our members asked, is we have a separate VLAN, and if people want to change voice, it just becomes part of the network traffic. We don't actually see or do or anything else around that. So I want to throw a prop out here to the great ISOC team. ISOC run a program called Access for the African Union, and they've been doing this for over a year now. And as part of the Access program, we teach a lot of this material to exchange points that are developing. I think there's really good lessons that you can get from the ISOC team, from the instructors that are working in this program, and I think they're doing a great job. So thank you, ISOC. So you've also heard about this. What is it that you could expect? I think when the 2.0, IXP 2.0 idea was out there, it was what would you expect to see in future exchange points? There was a great discussion this morning about remote peering. I think that's an important thing. Clearly, Dr. Norton believes so as well. And to show that it isn't something that we were just talking about, we have a program called Inks Anywhere, where we do this as well. We allow remote connections. So I think African exchange points can expect to start seeing more remote peering type services come in. I think S-Flow connectivity is a really cool tool that probably will become very easy for most exchange points to implement, so that you can then provide value-added statistics. I mean, when I was an operator, it would have been great for me to have been able to see how much mail traffic I'm exchanging, or how much web traffic I'm exchanging at the exchange point. And that's what we do now. That's what we do, at least at my exchange points. We're able to provide that kind of information to people. And again, the benefit of S-Flow is that you're getting it at layer 2. You don't require peers to configure anything, and you're not getting payload information. So the sensitive stuff remains exactly that, sensitive. All we're doing is we're collecting numbers, protocols. So much TCP, so much mail, which is brilliant for me. You've heard people talk about private VLAN services. I won't mention that. And rootviews.org is a root collection educational project run by University of Oregon. I think that's a great value add to have at your exchange point. Again, something else that will want to get people to pull you in. So the thing is, though, that some of this stuff is actually difficult to do. It is. It sounds really cool, and it sounds, oh yeah, I got to get this done. Nishal said, do it. But it's not always something that's easy to get done. I forget who mentioned earlier today, but they spoke about IXP Manager. It's a tool that's built by INEX, the Internet Exchange Point operator in Ireland. It's a really cool tool. They've recently expanded it thanks to LoanApp. And I believe they've got some great new additions coming on. So if you're an exchange point operator and you're looking for something that will help you manage your exchange point, this is a really cool tool. It's free. If you want to inspect the code, it's available online as well. To show you that I believe in it, it's something that we're doing as well. It's something that back home, it's something that I'm installing and getting run for our exchange points at the moment. But also know where to go for additional assistance. And to me, this is important as well. It's when you believe that you're not on the right track, then there are useful organizations that can help you. People that you can talk to specifically about peering. And there are lots of organizations. I picked 4 because I believe they're neutral and I know them. There's ISOC, obviously. There's Afrinic as well. Packet Clearinghouse, PCH. And you've heard Bijal do the groundwork for me. Thank you, Bijal. For the AFIX, the African Exchange Point Forum. So if you're an exchange point operator, I think I've got all of the exchange point operators in Africa covered. But if you're thinking about starting an exchange point in Africa, then please speak to the AFIX. Find out about challenges that people in your region have had. Okay, it's great, it absolutely is. I'm a EuroIX member. It's great going to EuroIX and saying, please help, I've got this kind of a problem. But they don't necessarily understand that you would need 4 generators in some cases because power goes out for 4 days and you're laughing. It's probably never happened to you, but I know places of this where generators have caught fire because they've been on for so long. So speak to the people in your community because we can help you, right? Again, I'm targeting the upcoming exchange point operators, AFIX. We're here to support you. We want to help you, more importantly. So please ping us. Let us know. I always get asked 3 questions whenever I talk about exchange points in South Africa, usually through some training system. And the 3 questions are, I put them down here. The first is, why do you have more than 1 exchange point in South Africa? And to me, I never quite understood this. let me be clear. I've never quite understood the question. Because in a lot of cases, people are happy to understand the benefit that they get from peering. They're happy to understand the benefit they get from their first exchange point. And I've never understood why, if they understand why the first exchange point is good, then, well, why couldn't those rules and all the benefits you get from running an exchange point in city number 1 be transferred if you had another exchange point in city number 2? So, like I say, I've never understood the question. I've always responded exactly like that. The reasons are simple. We saw tremendous benefit from putting in the jinx 16 years ago. Our ROI at the time was something like 2 weeks. That's right, 10 working days, even better. So we thought, why not? Let's try to get things up and working, and yeah, that went away. So the reasons that we put up the second exchange point, the third exchange point, again, exactly the same. We wanted to see the benefits, except we wanted to regionalize the benefits. A very popular question that I get asked is, will you connect the exchange points into one big national IXP? And my answer to that is always no. We operate, and I'm speaking with my exchange point hat now, we operate internet exchange points. If I started interconnecting these exchange points across Cape Town to Johannesburg is 1,200 kilometers. If I started doing that, I stop running an exchange point. I start running a telco. And telcos are not easy to run. Or an ISP, even better in some cases. I'm sorry. ISPs, telcos, that line is gray these days. We don't do that. That's not our goal. Our goal is to run an internet exchange point, and that's what we do. We have people in our country that interconnect long haul. They're called internet service providers. They're our members, they're our customers. We let them do that because that's what they're really good at. We have no plans, well, as long as I'm there, we have no plans to interconnect the exchange points across the country. And the third question, and this is something I get a lot, especially from the African guys, is if you don't force people to peer, then isn't that bad for the exchange point? How does the exchange point grow if you don't tell them you have to go to the exchange point and peer? Well, again, as I said, for 16 years, we've never mandated peering. Mandated multilateral peering, LPA, it's not something we've ever done. We've also never, for the record, we've never had our incumbent connect to the internet exchange point. So if you think that you need, again, the big three, or you need your biggest telco in the country for your exchange point to survive, living proof that your exchange point will work even if you don't have the incumbent. 16 years on, they're not there. We miss them, we really do. I speak to them at least 4 times a year saying, please reconsider. And I hope they're reconsidering. But until that point, we're very happy to go on business without them. We've never found it necessary to force people to interconnect because we think we educate people about peering, and we think that they make then that informed decision that they want to save money. You saw the peering game this morning. I think nothing makes it clearer than the peering game in a very fun way as well. Now, our job as an exchange point operator is just a neutral platform. So to tie that into those red dots that I showed you at the start, I think when red dots start doing more than just that stuff, providing a neutral, highly available, resilient platform, I think that might be one of the reasons why you could probably see red dots. I don't know, I haven't done research into it. Maybe next year I could, but at this meeting I don't. That's it for me. I promised I'd be short by comparison. If you want to ask questions, I think we're taking questions now. Hisham?
Well, first of all, thank you, Nishal. And yes, if we have any Q&As, please go to the mic. Bill, I see you at the mic.
Well, I just want to thank you for that presentation. I love the presentations where you identify real problems and talk through real solutions out in the field. So thank you very much for putting that together. I think probably the greatest failure scenario in the world for exchange points is the build it and they will come mentality. You know, some people think you just drop a peering fabric into a data center and voila, the right things will happen. From my experience, what you really need to do is exactly what you're doing, exactly what I did when I was at Equinix, which is you need to have a community liaison, somebody whose job it is to beat the bushes and educate potential peering prospects about the value of peering. A lot of the things you mentioned, people are afraid if they put up their exchange point participants list and there's only 2 people, that people will say, oh, this isn't worthwhile, I'm not going to go to this thing. The reality is ISPs all know that exchange points start out with nobody there. They all start out but it really takes a concerted effort at this.
Hello, my name's Nurani Nimpuno. I'm with NetNode in Sweden, and I'm wearing two hats. I'll make comments wearing both of hats. So we run an exchange point in Sweden, and actually my comments are similar to Bill's in that I think exchange points are often built by techies, right? You identify that there's a need, and then you build it. And you both tend to ignore and kind of shy away from the other part, the community building, the marketing, the information. And I think when you look at some of the exchange points in Europe and in other places, the reason they were successful early on was not necessarily because they hired a marketing person, but because the people who were there had the ability to talk to people. And I think you often kind of think that, okay, I'll build my exchange point, and then once we're up and running and we've got X amount of staff and we've got, a certain amount of revenue, we will hire you made was also the thing about for the community. So to try to restrict things or to determine what people are allowed to do at the exchange point will not work. Last comment I'll wear with my other hat on, because NetNode is a root server operator, and you brought that up as well. And we actually want to build more sites in Africa. So that's also part of the reason we're here. We want to talk to people and identify good sites. Thank you.
Nishal, Mike Silber, again, wear multiple hats, but for the time being, let me put on my ISPA South Africa hat and maybe give you a bit of a history lesson. Because obviously when we employed you, we didn't give you enough of a history lesson as to some of the reasons behind some of the exchange point thinking in South Africa and ISPA's attitude. The first thing is that we had previously a national exchange point. It still exists. It's called the South African Internet Exchange. And ISPA took on the incumbent monopoly, who was claiming that they had exclusivity in terms of the provision of internet services, and that ISPs should not be allowed to provide internet services. So the ability to peer and exchange traffic was one of the benefits won through litigation that was attended to by ISPA South Africa. But the situation we inherited also inherited a massive national connectivity deficit, where to this day it's cheaper for me to land traffic in Cape Town from London than it is to transit traffic from Cape Town to Johannesburg. Quite a bit cheaper. And some of our members within ISPA, great guys, but concerned with their own interests first, and they need to be. We're very concerned about people taking advantage of peering to get free transit. And so one of the critical issues and one of the biggest issues we've had within ISPA is some of our larger members who are saying, that's fine, we're willing to peer in one place with you, but only for local traffic. If you want to look at national traffic, then you've got to peer everywhere. And the question of, well, where is everywhere? Because you're beginning to sound a little bit like the monopoly incumbent, and you're starting to look at things like, well, are you now talking about street cabinets in terms of everywhere? Are you talking about national exchanges, regional exchanges? What are you talking about? And that's a debate that we've had internally to ISPA. And it's one of the reasons why I think Nishal is correct. Our community started fracturing a little bit, is because there was this push between the big operators and some of the smaller operators. We saw peering and they said, fantastic, these guys are on our side, and the bigger operators said, no, hell no, we've spent millions of dollars building national networks. Sorry guys, you don't get free transit. But what Nishal also touched on is exactly my thinking, Graham's thinking, various others within IXP South Africa, which is this community can't just exist on a volunteer basis and expect it to continue when there aren't immediate pressures, because the pressures of business, the pressures of building a network, acquiring customers, customer service will take priority, except for some few people who are passionate about it. And that's why we decided to bring Nishal on board to try and professionalize the exchange points. And it's something I'd encourage everybody to think about, is that this is a organic type of institution. It's composed of people rather than technologies. It relies significantly on people and relationships. And so you've got to manage it, you've got to nurture it, you've got to feed it and water it and grow it. We took one step. There may be other routes to go, but what I really encourage you to do is look at roadmaps and see how you can professionalize and develop your exchange points. Don't think that they can just, because there's a current need, you can just put them in place and expect them to continue indefinitely. They can't be built in stone.
Okay, so I have a question, and how do you engage your membership to get to know what they want? Because everything you've talked about looks like it's good for the exchange point, but I'm wondering, in all that, what percentage of it is the members coming to you and saying, I want to see flows, to see what percentage of traffic is going through the IX, or, we want a DNS root server. Is this the exchange point doing this because it knows it's good, or is it a request, or are the requests coming in from the operators or participants at the exchange point asking this? And if there is there anything else, since you made the changes, like the changes, the things you had done wrong and fixed, is there anything else outside that the members have actually come and asked and said, we would like to see this? Like, we would like to see remote peering in place, or we would like to see port security in place, or we would like to see a single MAC address or multiple MAC address, or we want to have limits on how many prefixes are exchanged at the IX. Are those requests you get from members? And if so, how do you get, if not rather, how do you get your membership to actually engage with you to tell you what they really want? Or is it that they just don't care as long as the packets move?
Thanks. So could you state your name for the record, please, because you didn't?
Ichuki Mwangi.
I think, but that buffer much more. So I think there was a comment, really a question. Direct. So thank you. Like the distinction. So yes, there's an organization in South Africa called the South African Internet Exchange Point South African Internet Exchange Point. As Mike said, it is a transit provider, and when I speak about exchange points, I tend to exclude transit from that. I'd like to think that I'm slim, young, and handsome, and because I call myself that, it doesn't necessarily make it true to me, as much as I'd like it to be. So I think that although Sykes call themselves an exchange point, or they've put it in their title, it doesn't necessarily qualify them to be an exchange point, at least I think in the sense that this audience expects to hear. And that was why I started with the layer 2 switch, which is your very loaded question. Most of, unfortunately, point, and this This is what I mean by not having a lot of that community buy-in, and the thing that we really, really need to fix. Most of what we're doing right now comes out of initiatives that are driven by one or two excited individuals that make up part of that exchange point community. So Mike, Graham, that's Rian that's sitting in here as well, or myself. It's us recognizing that this is something that we want to build in our environment. So if I look at the remote peering thing, it's something we started work on about 18 months ago. We've released the draft. We have people using it now. It came from people going, some of us going, this is really good for the internet exchange point. This is what we would like to see happen, and what we see is growing the future of the internet exchange point. What would it take to get it to work? I would love to see a lot more of the community participate in that, and it's my belief, and my belief, this is not ISPA or the exchange point's belief, but it's just my belief that that hasn't come around because the people in our community, and this is the South African peering community, that are responsible for, that are looking at these mailing lists, don't really necessarily know who people are. Oh, they all know Nishal at ispa.org.za now, and they know some of the other names, but they don't have that face-to-face relationship that, we'd like to do this. We'd want to build, discuss, and grow within a kind of community. We have an excellent 1-week event that's actually next week if you're in South Africa, called iWeek, but that's not really a community, it's not really an operator community. It's a community of a whole bunch of things. It's regulation, it's regulatory aspects, it's aspects of DNS, it's aspects of what's happening from a network operations perspective as well. But it's not a pure network operators group. So if you think about something like the routing working group at RIPE, or if you think about something like Nanog or something like that, it's something we're lacking. It's something we had 15 years ago. We used to have something called Zanog, which got replaced, but it's really quiet. So I see one of my jobs, one of my critical goals is reviving that, getting the community, the people that are going to interconnect to me at some point, to start speaking up, to start discussing topical issues like, hang on, why isn't there more V6 in South Africa? We've been doing this since 2001, some of us. It's not that difficult to get the rest of it online. RPKI, because this is something I like. Why aren't there more people signing ROAs? Why are there just 3 operators in the country doing this now? Or you did it, what did it mean to you? So growing the community, getting people to trust that there's a community of people that are willing to support them. I think that's a very important thing. I'm working on how to do that. I'm a part-time engineering resource, so people skills are still new to me as well. But that's what I believe it is. I believe it's getting the people to believe that you're working for their benefit, and I think that's helped tremendously by being able to say you're non-profit, you're non-aligned, you're neutral. At least I'm hoping that that's going to be the case for me anyway.
Okay, final question, then we have to end. So yeah, please.
I'm getting warmed up.
Anibe from Internet Exchange Point of Nigeria. I also want to add some other additions to what you just presented. One thing a new ISP should be on the lookout for is pricing. Get a good pricing. I mean, you can't just put a price there and expect everybody to pay. Let the pair members put value into your network before they decide to pay for this. Of course, that could be challenging in London Internet Exchange. If you don't pay your pairing, your membership due, you're just cut off. But they do it in Africa. I think to get the customer back will take a long time. Let me give you a case. Let me just have my point now. I was speaking to an educational institution on the need to connect to the Internet Exchange point, and what he told me is that we don't use the traffic for profit, so why should we pay? So he is looking at a discount in some of the pricing, and we have to be flexible about it. We have to take into consideration